I am wearing beret just because it's cool, and I wear a lot of berets. If you like me, I can go get. He wears a hat. I can go get my yarmulke. Couple of things that I want to do housekeeping wise. First of all, I'm so thrilled that this group, most of you end up, and it's good and bad, but most of you end up coming on Friday nights, which makes it really special because you're getting a laboratory. On the other hand, I'd like to see more of the regular members, but maybe some of you don't know. She does. You guys know. We have maybe 50 members in the congregation. Might be 75 if you include people who live out of town or who are so old that they don't come anymore. So I'm going to be honest and really frank with you all, and you can look it right up on the website, the very first page that Dave does his report on. I started to say this before. The synagogue is in deep doo-doo. I won't comment as to why. And it's not about me. It's not about me getting paid, but I'm the big ticket item. And the building is, obviously, this building, as I've told you all, is built 1949. It's in good shape. It really is, but it does require, things that come up from time to time. And if you, in several of your cases, but in your case, you're already Jewish, and you're already spiritually with us. You've been here a long time. But if you're going to affiliate, as in convert, then the very first thing that you need to do is to join the synagogue, a synagogue. If it was here or was there somewhere else. If I was teaching in Boston or LA, I would say the same thing. The sine qua non, which is a fancy word for the thing you got to do. The thing you got to do if you're going to become a Jew is to be a part of a community. I'll tell you just another funny client. I think I told you. I now have several, it happens to be men. One is the president of the synagogue in Evergreen, and he converted a year ago in the Intro to Judaism program, and then he made him the president. And somebody, I'm on a number of different websites. So a guy found me who lives in Beijing, China, but he grew up here. And he converted and went to California. I know the rabbi that he worked with in Bakersfield, California. But for whatever reason, and it's not a criticism on the rabbi or him, it didn't take. I mean, he converted. He went to the Beit Din at the AJU. That's the seminary that's on Mulholland Boulevard with the mikveh and the Beit Din and everything. And but also, frankly, he's living. You're a teacher. He's teaching the kids of all the ambassadors that live in Beijing, so he makes a good living. I saw him this morning. I said, why don't you move back here? Why don't you move? You make a lot more money there. But the Beijing synagogues his choices are a very, very reform group or the Chabad folks. So I gave him some other advice of things to do online, but you cannot be a Jew in a room by yourself. We are very community oriented. And one of the questions that are asked to you or at your Beit Din is, do you intend to be part of a Jewish community? And if you're going to have children, raise them as Jewish. And if you're going to get married, marry somebody who's Jewish. Not everybody does that, of course. So anyway, my guilt trip on you all is put down on your phones and your calendars, put down the date of December 17. And nobody's going to say you can't come, you're not a member, but that is when we're going to have the annual congregation meeting. It starts at 10 with a really nice
brunch that's planned.
Yes, I'm sorry I'm recording all this, but frankly, this synagogue does food very well. That's one thing we do well. Yeah.
And it is
go ahead.
Vegetarian.
Yeah, it's a dairy meal, probably with the lox and cream cheese and some sort of
we're doing Georgia's veggie
frittatas, yeah. So cheesy things. It'll be after Hanukkah's over. So the brunch starts at 10. The meeting, I believe, starts at 11. And they present it's the same kind of routines that most synagogues do for annual meetings. They present reports. Then they have elections which are perfunctory because they have a nominating committee. But it's a democracy, but very rarely does somebody nominate from, I want to run for office. The only catch is that you can vote if you're a member. But I want you guys to all come and hear and see. Have you ever been to a congregation of
Yeah.
So there won't be a lot of fireworks. But the point I'm making is, again, I'm not being mean or anything. We have to solve this problem. Here we've
In
grown
fact,
by
they
an
actually had- I mean, there was the
50%,
board meeting
yeah.
this last
Yeah.
week. I mean, and it was decided to hold off on any decisions until this meeting. So definitely go because the board wants to hear what people are thinking.
the decisions might end up, it's in the report. They may end up saying, they have already voted to offer me a new contract. Again, it's not about me, but for a couple of years, whatever. The problem is they don't even think they have the money for what they're paying me, much less trying to attract another person. So, but again, not to criticize, what I found out is they just weren't managing, they weren't asking people to contribute. I even made a speech last year at High Holiday saying we should have different categories of membership. We could have a category for non-Jewish supporter, Christian friend, Elias, Reverend Paul Everett, somebody who wants $100 a year. I want to support the synagogue, but they're not asked. And then we could have a category for people like you. I'm not yet a member. I'm not yet a Jew. The only thing is that this is everywhere. To be on the bima, holding a Torah, saying a blessing, you do need to be a Jew. It's like him you didn't want to put on your talit until.
I refused to.
Yeah, but now you ordered one. Yeah. Did you order the one you wanted?
Mhm.
Good. Well, how big?
I don't remember.
It's a middle size. All right. So that was my pitch. I don't want to sound like I'm asking you to support me, but the synagogue needs your involvement. And related to that, and this is fun. Hanukkah starts, write it down, December 7th, Thursday, December 7th. Got more calendars if you want. Get one for Ian, somebody. Thanks. Or Ian can get, it's not that you can't do it. It's just that, okay. You got it anyway. Okay.
Okay.
Take extras. Okay. Anybody else need one? So this year Hanukkah comes earlier than it did last year. And so the first night is Thursday, the 7th. I made a flyer I'm going to send out. I don't know what to do. I'm going to suggest that maybe that night people could do Hanukkah at home with their families or their kids or whatever. The 8th is the second night. That's Friday night here. Saturday night, the 9th. Don't know. I don't want to push that we should have it every night. I've done that in many synagogues. Your house, her house, my house, the synagogue. So the big one that this synagogue always organizes is Sunday, the 10th.
Mhm.
And that'll be at 3 p.m.
5.
to 5. No, is it 5?
It's at 5.
Oh, I thought it was starting at 3 with kids programs. Oh, it's at 5.
No, it's at
Okay,
5.
so 5, bring your own menorah if you own one. This whole table here will stay like this, and we put aluminum
The
foil,
candy will be gone.
and everybody, no candy.
For that.
Everybody lines up and lights their own menorahs. I sing songs. Let's see who that is. I don't see anybody coming in. So anyway, so that's the 10th. The 11th is a Monday, would be the 5th night, and there will be an online. It's Clarence?
Yep.
Oh, good. There'll be an online, which I'll get a link for us and the 2 or 3 Northern Colorado synagogues. It's a tradition. It's fun. It's online. I sing. You'll meet Rabbi Sally and Boaz and all the other, there's 3 rabbis, me, 4 rabbis counting Boaz. Boaz and Sally are married, and Sarah Gilbert, and I guess that's it, 4 of us. Anyway, it's fun. You meet other people from other synagogues. It'll all be online, probably be an hour. Tuesday night is our class. And this is getting to me what I want to suggest. Last year, because of the way Hanukkah fell, I did Hanukkah at my house. You guys came, I think. No?
Because it was our birthday.
Oh, it was your birthday. Oh, that's right.
Yep. Because
Oh, it was my birthday too.
same
Yes, it
thing.
was our birthday.
Yeah,
I
our
had everybody.
birthday.
All right, but this year I have two choices, or maybe
Said
three.
mine too.
It was our birthday. Yes, in different places.
Yes.
We went to the same high school at different times. Anyway, I'm trying to be as brief as I can, and it's all being recorded here. Raise your hand if you'd like to have Hanukkah that night here as a celebration and invite the rest of the congregation. I'm sure maybe 5 more people will come, or vote the other way if you'd like to have it at home, at home. If you have it at home, I was going to say my house again. If you have it at home, whoever does it has to clean their house and then make space. And then, we have Hanukkah, we have menorahs. And then last year, hey, brother, last year, Noam came over and made latkes. Here's what I was thinking. I mean, I'm thinking it through, but you can say, no, I want to host it. I want to host it. Yeah, anywhere you want to sit, brother. We could, this is relating to what Stephanie was saying. Carol, who was here last week, asked how many of you might be able to come in Sunday, that day, the Sunday, the 10th,
The 10th
at 12 o'clock?
at noon, they could really use some
And
help.
We're going to make
in
just
the
a
kitchen.
shitload of latkes.
Yep.
Did I say that? Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
you said
sorry.
that.
Yes. Make a ton of latkes. And then, but I said, Carol, I talked to her this morning. I said, Carol, if we make some, could we make 20 extra that we could have here on Tuesday? 20. Well, but we have to make sure that we put them aside.
Yep.
So that's the end of my synagogue pitch. So,
vote is here.
huh?
My vote is here.
I think it might be easier here because we're here already.
Where this place is at.
Yeah. I think last year, the reason was because the synagogue event had already taken place. And it was the end of the month. It was December 20th. It happened to be my birthday. So I said, let's all come over to my house. And I think it would be easier to have, we're talking about where to have the class. But I do want that class to be, a laboratory. Now, tonight we're going to learn, but we're not going to talk about Hanukkah again until that night. So those are the things. So December 10,
10 at noon.
do they just call Ben to sign up? Or they tell you next week? You're involved?
I'm gonna be here that day
Okay.
anyway. I mean,
All right.
pretty much all day.
Oh.
So if you want, just show up. You don't necessarily have to sign up.
Clarence is excused because he works all
Yeah.
the time. Do you work on a Sunday?
I do, but
Take the day off and come here and go in the kitchen and have fun. Plus, this is why Carol said it, because we were doing the kashrut lesson last week. And she said, if people want to understand and know how our kitchen works, come and you can see, well, that's fleshig, this is milchig, this use those pots is really fun. And as I started to say before, this synagogue really does.
They take their food.
We take our food seriously. The challahs that we have on Friday night are Jeff and Mary's recipe. And they come in every couple of weeks and they make several, and that's how they're here. We could go down to Denver and, bring them up. The cookies, a lot of the food that's brought here is homemade.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually,
okay.
on that note, the sisterhood does cooking on Thursday nights, generally speaking.
And you don't have to be a woman to be a part of the sisterhood either.
No, you do not need to be a female to
Yes.
be part of the sisterhood.
Right.
Some of their strongest helpers are actually men. So,
Yes. Hi, Jamie and Devin. We're talking about, things coming up. All right, so let me get to the lesson or to our class.
what day is that?
That is the 26th.
This coming?
26.
Mhm.
I'm gonna come down, they open up from what, 12 to 6?
10
For
to
the,
4.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
I wanna come down and get a few, menorahs. Mezuzahs. I've ordered 3, but I need at least 5 or 7. I'm see what they got, let's see, they don't have scrolls with that.
Yeah,
They will.
you get them and I will help you to hook up with my guy in Orange County.
On that.
And I'll come to your
note,
house and do a house dedication.
The sisterhood will have the gift shop open anytime the candy sales are going on. So if there's anything
Mm-hmm.
that you want, and it's definitely open, the night of the party. So there will be some
Now,
good
I'm gonna
opportunity to
try-
actually get in there and pick up something that you might want.
Okay, hi, everybody at home. We've got, by the way, as I said, Devin and Jamie are under the weather and are online. Bailey, who has never come here in person, lives in Nebraska. Amanda's not feeling well. How's Mary? Mary, how are you?
Good.
Good?
I'm fine.
Good, all right. You can put your unmute your camera too, turn around. How is Wojciech? Both Wojciechs? Good.
Getting big.
I'm asking him and you. Yeah, is Joseph is their new baby boy. And any other news? Hi, Joe. This is Big Joe. Any other news? He's just waving. Joe sits at home. Joe, we gotta have another lunch date sometime soon, maybe after the first of the year or before. Amanda, good with you? All
Yeah,
right.
I'm good.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem, that's a great line to know. Great. Do you want to use Jewish? It's not just Yiddish, use Baruch Hashem. Let's try it. Baruch Hashem. Thank God, right? No, that's the whole Megillah. You don't have to do that. Just Baruch Hashem, and by the way, Clarence,
And I've been just worshiping God for 30 some odd years teaching Torah.
I know. I know. I'm just trying to make you more mainstream, but you're right. But you don't say the blessing unless it's a blessing. I'm not trying to borrow you out.
Lord, King of the universe, it's not a blessing, it's just giving him.
Oh, I hear you. You got a point. We did that class on God language, but a Jewish way said, "How are you?" I'm lousy, right? So you're not going to say I'm lousy. Say Baruch Hashem, which means like it could mean it has range of meanings. It's like Yiddish has a range of meanings. Baruch Hashem means thank God, but it also can mean thank God I'm not dead. Thank God I didn't, lose my.
Leg.
I was going to say my purse or something. So if you're doing really well, you might say, let's see, Hebrew, you might say Tov Ma'od or Tov Todah. But Baruch Hashem is just one of those great expressions to say. And Baruch Hashem, you're all here. All right, so let's get ourselves started. But let me just get the material. You guys at home, Mary, Stephanie, Amanda, Jamie, access what I sent you. But if you want, I can try to, maybe you can go to your email and put up on the screen the rabbi's Judaism for Adults. How many of you got a chance to read that? Judaism for Adults. Let's see here.
Yeah, I don't want to go through your email.
Huh? It's your email. Okay. Let me see if I can just do that. So we're not talking specifically about Hanukkah tonight. I mean, we will be. We're going to do it. Actually, we're going to do a song. But I've always, when I've taught it this time of year, I've always tried to pace it so that we didn't do creation and Noah. We covered some biblical stories. We covered as much as we could. And I'm going to say this again. Remember, this is not a history class. It's only a survey. It's a helicopter ride through Jewish history. And so that you come out knowing at least where to look something up. But this period, the Hellenistic period, is just really important, not only because of Hanukkah, but because it's a very deep change for our people. Oh, there it is. All right, the real story of Judaism for adults. Thank you. And part of my dilemma is that when I wrote the story of Hanukkah for adults, I was assuming if I was talking to a Jewish audience or even a Christian audience who was fairly knowledgeable, everybody's heard the story about the valiant Maccabee fighters, trudged into the temple and they found it full of pig fat and destroyed, and all the menorahs were out, and they, couldn't find any oil, and they found only one tiny cruse of oil, and they relit the menorah with that tiny cruse of oil. They thought it was only going to last one day, and how many days did it lights did it last? 8 days. Why? We light the candles for 8 days. But that's the rabbi's story from 300 years later, 200 years maybe, okay, from the Roman period looking backward. So what I do in this article and other ones like it is, I'm sorry to say, I killed Tinkerbell, or I killed Santa Claus, the real story. And the real story is quite interesting in some ways, because it's what made us survive as a people. All right, so I put it up on the screen, but how many of you got a chance to see lights at home? Only a few of you. I want to show it again, but in a minute. I want to show it with the eyes of adults looking at cartoons. How many of you watched cartoons when you were kids, or still do? Rocky and Bullwinkle dealt with politics. The bad guys were Boris and Natasha. He looks like Boris. No, you look like Rocky. Hello, I am Boris. Boris, bad enough. And Bugs Bunny, all these things. I saw most of the cartoons when I was a kid. I didn't realize were using classical music. And we all heard, now I'm a little older than some of you, we all heard the William Tell Overture as the Lone Ranger. Anyway, my point is, whoever came up with that cartoon, the 35-minute lights, really put a lot of thought into how do you teach the real story of Hanukkah to children without going into the blood and gore and guts, the killing.
Did
Huh?
it beautifully.
Yeah, you watched it and you got the idea. And who's your favorite character?
Oh, I don't know.
All right, just joking. But there's an interesting thing they did with cartoons was the flashback to Greek times. They take, because they're cartoonists, some of there's a little lamb in there, a little sheep that the shepherd is walking around with, and then they flash forward to, and now today Hanukkah this is the holiday, and the same cartoon character, but instead now it's the guy's dog. So the old man in the story, who's valiant, I'm going to pick up the slingshot, and he becomes the old man at the end of the story. So it's sort of like Wizard of Oz. My favorite character, not favorite, but my favorite bad guy is there's a Syrian Greek soldier who's running around like Bluto in Popeye, chasing the little boy that has the little cruse of oil. All right, so, but we'll watch it in a minute. Anyway, let's see if we can review again for some of you maybe who weren't here for all of it or may not remember. We're this people that's alone, lying in this area, sometimes called Judea, that was, in prime land, prime real estate, right by the coast. And we're stuck in the biblical period where we're between Egypt over here and Samaria over there. And if you remember my chart of the 5 periods, each period has a group of leaders, a type of literature, a couple of very difficult problems to deal with, and later on, a horrible crisis that spells the end of that period. And I said before, people don't just wake up and say, hey, it's the Renaissance. Rather, people look back at that period 100 years, 500 years later, and they say, hey, did you notice that things changed? And we have the same thing going on today. We are living in the post-World War II computer age, everything with the internet and so on. Now, by the way, I'm not trying to jump around and be distracted, but do you know where because of today's important news, do you know where the name Palestine comes from?
The Romans.
The Romans, so the Philistines, yeah, go ahead. Oh, you're a history teacher, man.
I was going to say Philistines, but you said it right before.
Yeah. Oh, but what was Philistia?
It was a group of people that lived in like northern Israel, south of Lebanon.
You might be correct, but my memory is the Gaza Strip. Philistia was, they were Greek or from that ethnic background, people who were seafaring folks who came across and lived along the sea. But you might be right. There might have been also up in Lebanon area.
The Phoenicians.
Huh?
The Phoenicians, they were up in northern Israel, southern Lebanon,
That's
and
right.
it was the Philistines that were in what's now today known as the Gaza Strip.
And that was Amanda?
Bailey, hi.
Great. Yeah. I'm sorry. I still have this thing on the screen. Can I take off, or can you take off the share for a minute? So, all right. So I want to get to the movie and I want to get to the article, but whatever it is, what is fascinating is that whole problem has been there for more than 2,000 years. So jumping out of Hanukkah for a minute, when the Romans destroyed the second temple and fought the Jews in the second rebellion of Bar Kokhba, 135 CE, their punishment was the first rebellion, 66, the second rebellion, 135. The first rebellion, they just said, no, you can't, no more temple. You guys we're destroying your temple, but you can still stay here. And so a lot moved into the Galilee, moved away, moved to different cities. And then there was a second rebellion led by rabbis. And the hero or the leader was Bar Kokhba. And then that was quashed. Now the real punishment began. And that's when they said, exiling all of you from the land of Israel. And as further punishment, they renamed the land of Israel Syria Palestina. So sort of like saying, well, hey, we've done that to the Indians, the Native Americans here. Some places still have Native American names or Spanish names. Other places have been completely changed. What's the big Devil's Tower? Has an Indian name. But so Syria Palestina comes from that. And so I am, as you all know, fairly progressive. I would like to see a two-state solution. But the facts are that the people who settled in the land of Israel, who are of Arab background, were just wandering through from Syria, and they did not establish an actual national identity as Palestinians until after Israel was founded. So that's, sort of strange.
Where Palestinian came from the French, but no, they came over, and the Philistines wanted to get rid of that image of Philistines, and he named them Palestinian. That's where that name came from.
Yeah. So back to the Hanukkah story itself. So we that might be Marcus. No, Marcus was sick. I wonder who it is. Maybe it's our new guy. I always worry. Come on in. Oh, it's William.
I'm not gonna stay.
Huh? What do you mean?
My dog's in the car.
Bring the dog in.
I
Huh?
brought these are kosher cookies.
Oh,
Share with
that's fair.
people.
Well, at least introduce
Okay, I
yourself.
will. This is a
Okay.
card for you.
Oh, that is very nice. What? A kleine Brivela. You really are into Yiddish, huh? All right, sit for 5 minutes. I'm already, so William is potentially new member,
Yes,
right? You moved to town
yes,
and you're here in Cheyenne.
yes.
Okay, so say a few words about anything else you are, who you are, whatever, and then we'll go around one time. This is my intro class. This is
I don't know. If you ask something, I'll tell you. I don't know. It's I took care of my parents for over 15 years and they're gone. And I was living in Pennsylvania. And I've been out to Wyoming many times in my life and I've wanted to be here. So I finally got here.
good. Baruch Hashem.
And I followed Rabbi Halpern on YouTube.
He's been a commuter, a Zoom person. Okay, so just so you know.
But
Yes.
I will on the end.
Stephanie?
I don't know who I am.
Okay, we don't need it.
Yeah, right. He
Was
just
online the other.
Eliyahu.
I saw him.
He just dunked in the mikveh
Yeah.
down in Denver
That's
last week.
okay.
Yeah.
I
okay.
watched you. You were very eloquent
Okay.
online.
Oh, good, beautiful. All right, so but for future reference, anybody allergic to dog stuff, you can, that's what people do. The dogs are gonna go crazy in the car.
Well, I mean, I can bring them right in. I just don't
If-
wanna.
No, that's not the issue. If you want to use that as an excuse,
No,
like
I
you can't
don't.
stay, that's okay. Go back and get he's your,
He's my service animal.
he's
His
your
name is
companion.
Scout. He's a good dog, but he's energy off the.
No,
help with my anxiety.
try and remember, I think Tom and Laura have a dog that
Yeah.
might have been a service animal. No, we're not,
I come with my whole lint roller and everything. It's like, that's how I.
yeah, no, but the dog has to come. He's sooner or later, if he's
Oh,
gonna be
he's
coming
met
with,
tons of people.
then he's gonna have to come and get used to it.
But I don't like him
Okay.
to like.
All right, so I'm more worried about you than him. Mood swings and all that.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
Mood swings, but-
No, I'm teasing you. I'm just saying, dog, I worked in the prison with dogs quite a lot.
Yeah.
All right, Rabbi, get to the point. So the ending, who remembers, maybe I can test you, who remembers, what is one potential ending of the biblical period? The crisis, what's the big crisis? 586 BCE, what?
Babylon is this. Oh, man.
Give that guy a grape. Babylonian conquest of Israel and destruction of the temple the first time. It's huge, folks. You read about it in the book of Lamentations. We have Psalm 137. By the waters of Babylon, there we wept when we remembered Zion. How can we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? Our captors even told us, sing a song of Zion. No, we can't. We can't do it here. So it was, for that time, for those people, it was a trauma. It was a very emotional trauma. And I like to explain that perhaps the second exile under the Romans colored the first. You know how you have something happen to you, I'm not going to get all psychological on you. Something happens when you're 16, your grandfather dies, or you have a horrible car accident or whatever. I'm not going to talk about you, but anything that happens to us re-traumatizes us. So they remembered, and they had written about the Babylonian crisis. Perhaps I could theorize it wasn't as horrible. I mean, it was horrible, but remember, back then what they would do is they would take the upper class and drag them off, and they left all the poor people and the uneducated people and the farmers. So they fended for themselves. And that's who Ezra finds when he comes back, is all these, poor folks, intermarried with Canaanites and whatever. So the reason we think that's possible is because when they get to Babylonia, yes, they're slaves, but they kind of get integrated into Babylonian society fairly quickly. 70 years is what Jeremiah predicted. All right, I'll get off on that. But the point is that Ezra and Nehemiah, who we read about, and then they have the books. Ezra has a book, Nehemiah has a book. Nehemiah becomes the governor of the new Commonwealth, and also the sense of the army, whatever. And Ezra becomes the teacher, the leader, the prophet. He's sort of like a Moses. I think I talked about that. That in some ways Ezra creates this new religion. He stands in the marketplace on Mondays and Thursdays, and he reads from the Torah, and he interprets the Torah, and they don't understand. So maybe he's speaking Aramaic because they didn't know the Hebrew. It's also possible, I could even theorize, Ezra might have written it in Babylonia, if I wanted to be really radical. But the stories were oral. So, oh boy, be that as it may. And you remember also, I know I'm synopsizing here. Cyrus is, by the way, Isaiah says Cyrus is the Messiah. What? How can he be the Messiah? That's actual language. And his name is
Scout.
Scout. Hi, Scout.
In English.
Huh?
He speaks 3 languages.
Well, whatever he likes to be talked to.
Scout.
Scout. So you have some treats? That can
Yeah,
come
the
down?
whole bag.
Oh, good. Okay. So Cyrus may have been actually influenced by Nehemiah. They may have been, like I said, sort of like they got to know the king. They got to know the court. And maybe that's why the Persians make the declaration, you can go back to Judea. I skipped over the fact that the Babylonians were conquered by the Persians. So tonight, what we're really dealing with is the beginning of that process of interacting over a 300-year period with 4 or 5 really powerful empires. Boom, boom, boom. Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, and then whatever comes after the Romans. Does anybody here, I think Josh, you might remember, does anybody, you know the song that we do at Passover? My father had a kid, he bought for 2 zuzim, chad gad ya, chad gad ya. Then came the cat and ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim, chad gad ya. Chad gad ya means 1 kid, 1 goat. So we are the goats that God bought for 2 tablets of the law. It's a medieval song. It's like a fairy tale. You know, the hip bone's connected to the leg bone, you know. So the song is, there's 1 goat that God acquired for 2 zuzim, which are coins, but it really refers to the 2 tablets of the law. Then came the cat. What's the cat? The Babylonians. And then the dog ate the cat, bit the cat. The dog is the Persians. And the stick hit the dog. Don't do that. I didn't mean that. The dog, and who's the stick? The stick is probably the Greeks. And then the fire burned the stick, and that's probably the Romans. And then it goes on up until the Middle Ages. It stops. And then somebody in the 70s wrote another verse of it. They said, then came the bear, that's the Soviet Union. Right? And then came the eagle, and that's either the Nazis or the British. Some people say. So there's all these animals are symbolic of these different empires. Okay. So to go back and say, so 586, just write it down, 586, that is pivotal. When the temple was destroyed and we get transported lock, stock, and barrel to Babylonia. But there in Babylonia, we managed to somehow write our history, become a religion, and even the idea of God being no longer just the Hebrew God in the land of Canaan, land of Israel, you know, but God goes with us. So then maybe that's where the idea develops, that God is God, not just Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh or Adonai or Elohim, but God is the God of the whole world. All the stories that, you know, you read. So Ezra and Nehemiah trace back to Judea with a ragtag group of people. And then, you know, some of this from history, they discover these people living there. And as I said, Ezra kind of tries to mold a group from both the returnees and the folks living there. So now we enter into this period that's kind of murky because nobody's bothering us for a good period of time. Slowly, finally, the Persians come and the Persians take over, you know, from the Babylonians. The Persians were not great administrators. All they wanted was the money. So now, so 586, another date, write down 444. This is all BCE, folks. 444 is when Ezra, that's the date that's given of when Ezra came back. And the next big date is, depending on which book you read, 333. Remember, we're going backwards, negative numbers. That's for you. 333 BCE is when Alexander does his trip through Judea. Some books have it as 332 because we don't know when it began and also how they counted time then and so on and so forth. So this is from my essay. And I said this on Friday night. So Philip of Macedon, not Greece, Philip of Macedon is a pretty good conqueror. He conquers an area nearby. Macedonia is today Albania. Anybody know anybody who's Macedonian? They have a great deal of pride. You know, Yugoslavia is also part of that. It's not Greece. It's adjacent to Greece. Who does Philip hire to tutor his spoiled little son? Aristotle. I mean, you guys can probably recite some of this. No, I've been doing this for several weeks at services. So Alexander grows up believing everything Greek is cool. But as I said in my essay, he's a smart guy, he's smart general, but he's not Socrates level, right? So what he exports all through the entire Middle East, all the way out to the end of Turkey, almost to Afghanistan, is this Hellenistic culture. Greek, 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 Greek. So when we watched the movies and we were growing up, I was growing up as kids, all we knew was it was Greeks. It wasn't Greeks. It was Syrians who were Hellenized. I'm lecturing too much. Maybe you guys can tell me. So he has two generals. He has several generals, but who takes over which? Where? Nobody read my essays. Yeah. Seleucus is Syria and yes, okay, Syria and everything east. You're right. And Ptolemy gets Egypt. Egypt and northern Africa. So who remembers the name Cleopatra? Yeah, she was a Ptolemy. She was not Egyptian. So what they do that's very clever, and this is a little bit like, it reads like something like the British or the Americans. It's imperialism, but it's soft imperialism, you know. So Alexander was smart. And he said, all you generals want you to intermarry with the Persian princesses, which was probably cute anyway, nice hot ladies and stuff. So they're insiders. He also said, not because he was enlightened, sorry, I mean to be sexist. I'm just saying, you know, smart generals. You know. And Alexander most likely died of either syphilis or some kind of sexually transmitted disease, or some people think he was murdered, but it's like 3 years and that's it. And this whole empire. And so the Seleucus guys, Seleucus 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Antiochus 1, 2, 3, 4 are all ruling out of Antioch, which is today Syria, not far from Damascus. Ptolemy's continued, the Ptolemy dynasty continued the policies of Alexander, which instead of me talking, what was the policy of Alexander towards religion? Not about money and taxes and politics. Yeah, you know. Go ahead.
It didn't really interfere with them as long as they didn't rebel.
That's right. Yeah. No, but I mean, not because he was, you know, sort of a 19th century enlightened person, but he just said, I don't give a damn. You know, I want the money, I want the power, I want to control things. But so they did something that was also very unique. And I'm getting to Ptolemy because of this. But you're going to be my resident scholar now. So what is syncretism? You know, anybody read my piece? Okay.
Syncretism is like when you take two ideas and mesh them together.
Particularly credo, two religions,
Right?
Two religious ideas, and mush them together. What's a Christmas tree? Come on, it's a Yule thing from the pagans in Europe, and all those churches that the later European churches were built on the sites that were holy to witches and pagans of that time. I had a girlfriend who was a Wiccan back in Northern Mass. She's married now, don't worry. But it was just amazing how much we taught each other. I learned a lot from her. She learned a lot from me. But
For a rabbi, you break a lot of the taboos.
she wanted to become Jewish just like you. She just didn't want to. She didn't go all the way through because she thought Judaism was too patriarchal. But that's neither here nor there. But we're friends on Facebook now. Of course, I break taboos. What do you think? But I'm still a good Jew. Were you bugging me?
I think it's always good when you question and don't
I-
just take something in. When you fight and argue with it, you actually.
I also could make the case that it's important to learn about other religions.
That's true.
I meditate with Buddhists. I drum with Nigerians, and I dance in the woods with the pagans. So what?
And you can learn a lot about yourself through other people.
Sure. But back to that time, syncretism is also very evident today. I mentioned Christmas trees in South America, Brazil and Haiti and Jamaica. People who came from Africa will keep some of the old traditions from the Yoruba, and they'll say that, see that statue? It's obviously Jesus or Mary. They'll say that's Jango. Jango, Jesus becomes Jango, who's the god of thunder, kind of like Thor or Apollo, and Yemaja, the goddess of the sea, becomes Mary. So they'll have, you're looking and say, that's Mary. No, that's Yemaja. And people will go to church in the morning in Brazil, and they'll go in the evening to Candomblé. And the same thing happens in Haiti. There it's different. It's the, what is that called? Forgot the name of the Haiti religion. Anyway, voodoo, yeah, voodoo, actually. And it's not dangerous. It's just, it's part of their traditions. But what happened in that period is all the and remember, they're not Greek, they're Hellenizers. All they had to do was say, you guys worship Baal, but we're just going to replace it with Zeus. Same guy, different name. You know, Ashtoreth, Venus, etc., etc. They come to Judea and they find these people who they're supposed to be backward. They study, they read, they're a little bit prudish by the Greek standards. You know, we shave, they don't. We love to eat, and it's part of our tradition, and we want to be like the gods and the goddesses. They don't believe in a physical God. That's weird. So in the film, that's what it looks like. Is Alexander is looking at these lights, and he's, you know, what is with this thing? Why is it, you know, so powerful? But and he does little games. He weighs the aleph next to an alpha, and the aleph can weigh more than the alpha. So anyway, the 100 years or so where this Hellenization begins to take place. I'm synopsizing my article. You're I don't know, I could play games with one of you and say, Josh, you're a young, rebellious son of a priest in Jerusalem, or you're a merchant in Jerusalem, and you meet these Greeks, like the guy in the movie, you know, or the Assyrians actually, or the Greek officers, and they're really cool, and they got culture, and they seem to have a lot to offer. Now, I've covered this in my article too. What is a polis? This is the important stuff. Metropolis, politician, policeman, yeah?
Well, this is like a little independent country, but it's just based on a city-state and the surrounding agricultural lands feeding.
You want to teach this class? You got it.
Not
That's great.
where you're qualified.
Well, I got that, but you've done history. You had so also to become a polis, you had to have certain Greek features. They had to have certain architecture, a gymnasium, right? And you had to have, you know, some gods and goddesses there. The trappings of this, and he's right. What it enabled you to do is you get money and support from the dominant power. Remember, we're talking about before this is previous lessons. We're always talking about us, the Jews, interacting with a bigger dominant civilization, playing nice, but not too nice, you know. And yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. But in Jerusalem, that became the polis. And there were Hellenized Jews who thought, what a great idea. We get to have all this money and privilege. And so in this period of about 100 years or so, we'll call it acculturation, but it was really assimilation. What's the difference between assimilation and acculturation? Yeah.
I mean, the way
I'm speaking
view
English.
it-
We're speaking English.
No, the way I view it,
Yeah.
the acculturation is kind of, you're getting acclimatized to your environment,
Right.
whereas assimilation is you're mimicking everything to the point that you're forgoing
Yep.
your belief or faith first, you know, either put it on the back burner or only, to me, it's sort of like when friends say to me, that person Jewish or Jewish background, meaning they might eat lox and bacon, listen to Barbara Streisand, but that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Whereas
Right.
acculturation might mean that you attend synagogue a couple times a year, you've learned to read Hebrew, and that's maybe the extent, but you don't want to be too Jewish in the street.
Well,
kinda.
they're both a degree of adapting. You're right. The examples that I used to give is the person who is not at all fitting in would be the Amish, the Hasidic, the Pennsylvania Dutch, or oil and water. You put oil into water, and the oil that goes on the top, right? It doesn't mix unless you go like that. But even so, they're still going to settle. If you put salt into water, you're going to salt the water, but it looks like, well, you can still drink it, well, you'd get sick, but so salty water or a little bit of it. So that would be acculturation. Put red dye into water and the dye turns the water red. That would be assimilation. So you can still see the Jew. You can still see the, forgive me, Clarence, some African Americans were into years ago were just straightening their hair. Right. American
There was an
actors.
expression
American
that I
actors.
grew up here,
Yeah.
American
What?
Chinese. They
Yeah.
would say first generation Chinese, second generation Chinese American, third generation lost.
That's the Chinese. Yeah.
it was
That's
kind of.
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same. So we see that back in that time is this. Anyway, I got to show the movie so we can have some fun with it. You see this challenge of the people, not only in Jerusalem but any of these cities that were very prosperous. Meanwhile, again, to reiterate, everybody, all these peoples have switched over to Greek and the Greek culture. Even I went to an exhibit in LA on Turkey, and I was because my family's from Turkey. I was fascinated. There's a whole period of Turkish history in which all the Greek, agriculture, architecture, artwork is all in the style of the Greeks. So we covered this, but I'm just going to reiterate. So Ptolemy guys developed a very nice adaptation, and they said, come on, move down here. So a lot of Jews moved to Alexandria with perhaps this feeling that they would be accepted. And, no, they didn't go to a temple and they didn't have a temple. There was for a time, this is minor trivia, for the time there was even a temple in, not a synagogue, mind you, a place in Egypt called Elephantine. And they rebelled against the folks in Jerusalem. Said, we want to build our own temple with our own animal sacrifices. And it existed. Eventually, it was overrun, but the Ptolemies tolerated that. The Ptolemies were tolerant. The Seleucids were selective. Does that work? I don't know. So that's where, this is an important point. It's in Alexandria, Egypt, where the Bible was first translated into Greek, which is just an impactful event, because now it can be read by Greeks and Romans and other, non-Jewish peoples. So, and Alexandria had, if you may remember, had a huge library. I mean, not just the general library, had Jewish books. So that area, even though ironically, and this is again an issue about assimilation can work this way too. Welcome, come on in, make yourselves at home. And over a period of time, people adapt so much that you're right, second generation, third generation. Yeah, that's it right there. All right, so when does excuse the expression, S hit the fan?
It doesn't say it.
Well, I already said something else before, but what was going on with Antiochus? All right, so, and I wrote this, so if you read it, fine. You didn't, so we get to Antiochus IV, and they have a problem, a fiscal problem, money. They got to get more money. And they have a cultural and political problem. I liken it, again, I do these glib things. I'm just suggesting, like the Soviet Union of old, or like America, there's still people that want to secede in Texas. Y'all, there's people. America is a good example of this e pluribus unum thing. I'm a different kind of teacher than I've taught all that stuff, but I teach it in quick sound bites. Someday I'll write a book, but I'm looking now at Ian. I'm a non-academic academic, but I studied with great professors. So, but Antiochus's problem by that time, 168 or so in BCE, is that he's got this huge empire and all these different peoples, and it's falling apart, or there's a lot of different rebellions, not just ours. And they had this policy, as I said before, of intermarrying and putting priests into the temples of these different peoples that were quislings, that were our people. Okay, so it's working to some extent in the other cultures. And so he has rebellions, he has disunity, he has cultural problems, he has money problems. So what's the solution? Appoint people in the temples who are your people. By that time, and you remember my saying this, but the Hanukkah story, the Hasmonean rebellion is as much, or maybe more so, a civil war between Jews, or between Judeans, between the Hellenized Judeans and the, maybe if you want to call them, more religious folks. So we got Jerusalem, we have the surrounding area, and Antiochus has this person who he likes, he wants to appoint to be the priest in the temple. A priest in the temple? That's got to be a Kohen, so maybe they checked their pedigree. So there were two or more competing factions. One was a man named Jason, who was a Hellenized Jew. With a name like Jason, probably was Yoshua, Jason, Greek name. The other one was a guy named Menelaus. Well, you can tell by the name Menelaus, he was already past that. He was already Hellenized. So they're both somewhat Hellenized. But the one that went to Antiochus and pretty much bought the deal, said, I'm gonna make me the high priest, and I'm gonna support you, and I'll pay such and such. That was Menelaus. So there's a huge what's the word I'm looking for? Not rebellion.
Insurrection.
Well, not quite, but there's a huge backlash against this by certain people. And this is in my essay too. Antiochus was having so many rebellions. He's in the middle of a fight in Egypt, and the rumor gets started, like rumors. We have the internet, they didn't have those. Then he got killed. So then they really, that's when the rebellion kind of brews. And he comes back and he's angry, he's pissed off. And as a result of that, he then institutes these drastic measures that you've all heard about. What's one major thing he does to the Judeans? It says no more what?
No more circumcision.
Boom. I was just going to say, and it came from her. I was thinking from the guys. Who do you think was rebelling?
The mother.
The mothers. The mothers said, "How dare you?"
Onto traditions a little bit harder than men.
What's that?
Traditionally,
The women were very instrumental in this rebellion. And then he goes further and said, no Torah reading, no keeping kosher, and I'm taking over your temple. And I've got this guy Menelaus, and he turns it into a shrine for Zeus. And that's when all the rebellion happens.
They've destroyed, I guess, monotheism is what they were trying to do.
That's what they're trying to do by this point. So again, it's a classic story, like some of our current politicians.
He sacrifices pig on the altar.
That's what they did. Yeah.
The other question is, is it also from history? I thought I recalled the Greeks and the Romans, they would charge you to go to their different shrines. Well, for Jews, if they didn't have that, they wouldn't make money. But if they made it into shrines, now Jews were paying to visit these shrines.
That's very likely. I don't know about that, but I do know that if you were a Jewish kid or Judean kid, boy, there we go with the boys again, and you're growing up and you want to hang out with a cool crowd, and they're going to the gymnasium where they wrestle in the nude.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get made fun of because of your penis.
That's right.
There's that. And you're right. You also had to, maybe part of the dues was bring a sacrifice for Apollo. So there you are, already there with this. You don't have a gymnasium without a shrine in front of it. So you're on the money, so to speak. So all of this is stuff we're taught as kids. We're not taught we're taught about the oil, circumcision, kashrut, the pigs in the temple. And so the rebellion breaks out. Who remembers the story of Mattathias, whether it's true or not?
Is he the guy that
The old guy, the father.
the father that kills the Jew for?
It's not a pretty story. Yeah. Okay. So he lives in Modin, which is today still exists. There's a kibbutz there. It's near Tel Aviv. And he's a priest, a Kohen, but he's not of the Kohanim from the temple. So he's right. He is from that generation. And so a Syrian soldier or group of people come to Modin, and what do they ask?
They,
Let's do it Socratically. We're talking about Greek, so do Socratic means when I ask questions instead of talking so much. You guys know a lot.
seminar.
Yeah, a seminar.
They,
Well, I don't believe in seminars. I believe in whole nars,
oh, okay.
semi-nars. Bad joke. Yeah. So what does he ask? What does the Syrian soldier ask of Mattathias?
Essentially to, I think, I don't remember the god.
Does he
but
make him a bell to worship him, to prove?
Well,
that if
yes,
you- That if he
yes.
does it as a,
You are the leader of this
that
community.
if
By
I
the way,
get treated then me, then everyone else will, is that they?
pass this or save it for next week. Okay.
Use whatever.
We always bring.
They are
Yes.
kosher. They're marked
That's-
OU.
Okay, this space is free area, but kosher style.
I can never bring
The-
anything into a
The
scenario.
kitchen is strictly kosher. So the soldier comes, this is very pivotal to the story
I
because
mean, it's equivalent
again-
of, to me, of,
bowing to a cross.
well, no, I mean,
Or-
of Esther and her cousin Mordecai, when Mordecai would not bow to Haman.
Yep.
Is that right? Kind of.
Well, you're right on because the two stories are both, I mean, I'm connecting with what you're saying, but I'm building on it since you're correct, but I'm building on it. Both Antiochus, by the way, I didn't talk about his name yet. I'll be on that in a minute. Both Antiochus and whatever it is, the make-believe character of Haman, are falling back to the old ways, which is Caius Regis, Caius Religius. That's the Latin version of whatever the king does, it's your religion. You must do what the king does. And also, the king is really God's representative on earth. If you go all the way back to Hammurabi, the king is God. So, and that's what I was going to mention. So Antiochus took the name. Anybody?
Actually,
Bueller? No,
not
Antiochus, the bad guy, the Epiphanes. We'll say Epiphanes. I didn't know the actual Greek would be Antiochus Epiphanes.
Does
Epiphanes.
that mean that he's a god or something?
It's something like image of God.
So not
or
only is he
divine, the
replacing
divine-
gods, but he's actually now making that. He's actually making himself actually a single. God?
And he was actually quite nutty. He would do things according to stories like, like people would go today. What is it? It's something on, isn't there a show that was the boss shows up at work and you don't know he's the boss? He would dress up as a peasant and go somewhere like a bathhouse and listen to what people are saying about him. And then he would appear, say, hi, I'm Antiochus. And then he might kill him or maybe he'd laugh or whatever. So they gave him the nickname
Quite a day.
Antiochus Epimanes, as in maniac. So the maniac. So I'm saying that because not only was he the emperor, and not only did he have all these fiscal and political and military problems, but he was a maniac. He was a very egotistic and not nice guy, like a few politicians that you may know about. I'm not even talking about Trump. I'm talking about Nixon.
No, I would have called him Antiochus Meshugana.
Antiochus Meshugana. Yeah, Antiochus Meshugana. So, I mean, he created his own problem. Maybe this is just speculation on my part. Maybe if the Syrians had just continued playing nice, everybody would have just eventually assimilated. Who knows? But
Everyone
instead,
would have some yogurt with their hummus.
what's that?
Everyone would have some yogurt.
Everybody
with
have
their hummus.
tzatziki, yes. We would be all speaking Greek. All right, so let's move forward. So the rebellion breaks out. This is all in, cute comparisons. The Revolutionary War that was fought here and the Vietnam experience. What did you do if you were a small ragtag group of people against a massive army? Guerrilla warfare. And if you don't have any guerrillas, you can use elephants. I'm sorry. All right. No, so they came up with a scheme to fight, and there were several pivotal battles, maybe not a lot. The one that comes to mind is Emmaus or Emmaus, which is a little ravine near Jerusalem, where you can imagine, just like something out of a Western, the army comes in and they just throw rocks and things at them from above. Want to watch the clock. And Well, maybe we can put on the movie because instead of me talking. So I want to go forward and just say Antiochus, bad guy. The 5 sons in order. Yochanan, that's a John, that's Jahan. Shimon, Yehudas, number 3, Eleazar, and then little guy, Yonatan. So there's 2 Johns, Yonatan and Yochanan. And Yochanan becomes, in modern English, John H. Johann was like Johannes Brahms, right? So it's the H. John is Johnny, right? So many times they get mixed up. Mattathias died a natural death. He's old, and he basically says, take over Judah. And I want to do this, but I will save it for another time. But why are they called Maccabees? Let's just do this one thing. Why are they called Maccabees? Huh? Maccabee, we strike like a hammer. Makav is hammer or hatchet in Hebrew. Or the other story is Judah was a big, tall guy with a bump on his head, and they used to tease him as a boy, calling him Hammerhead. So you want to call me Hammerhead? I'm going to fight like a hammer. And that's a cute theory. Another, the bottom line, the best explanation is Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. You put that on your shield, it spells out Maccabi. Who is like you, O God? God saved us from the Egyptians 1,000 years ago. Now God will save us from these people. All right. So the battle is decisively undecided by the time they got to the temple. But they say 168 December or Kislev of 168 was when Antiochus issues the decree. 3 years later, they haven't finished fighting, but they managed to reclaim the temple. And that's the story. The key is that once the they kept fighting for several more years. It wasn't until about 142 that they finally got to the point where it was, again, just like Vietnam, perhaps, or World War II. You guys can have East Germany, we'll take West Germany. They didn't really win. They just got the Syrians to the point where they just didn't want to fight anymore. We've had it. We got enough battles elsewhere. Let these dumb, crazy Judeans have. And they settled with this idea of Clarence. Sorry. I'm just helping you, my man. I know he's up at 4 a.m, for God's sake. Yeah. So they get to the point where the Syrians left them alone. They still retained the control, but they left the Judeans to kind of be their own folks. By that point, we have what?
Kind of like Jews in Poland.
Jews in Poland, that's right. Yeah, so you're catching on. Or sort of like the Native Americans in this country, you just have your lone little land over there. By that point, the Hellenization has already reached the point where everybody's speaking Greek, but if you're a really pious person, you still spoke Hebrew or Aramaic. I should throw in here, this is again part of the story that we never taught our kids. There were 3 groups, 3 parties in a sense in Judea. One group was Hasidim. Today we see Hasidim, long beards and very pious. It means pious ones. So the Hasidim were so pious that they said, pretty much, we can't fight. We can't kill. That would be a sin. God will take care of us. They were not ridiculous. They were very good people. But eventually they were martyred or killed, or so some of them joined up. And the third group you already know about, the Hellenizers. Very big group. Again, a little glib, but who were the Tories in the American Revolution?
The loyalists who were loyal to the British government.
Yeah.
Basically make the Canadians after the war.
That part I hadn't thought about.
But don't forget, a lot of Americans would have run there
Yes.
to Canada if they couldn't.
Yeah. So the Tories eventually, some of them joined up, and they said, "Hey, you may as well, and they kept their money too." So the Hellenist Jews, some of them eventually saw the writing on the wall, joined maybe not the revolution, but they weren't going to fight. So, but by that time, the new Judea under the Hasmonean rulers is already Greek-ish, maybe acculturation. So, and this is the last piece, maybe not all of it, but the
It's kind of like eating souvlaki on a bagel.
yeah, or tzatziki and it's almost like he says. What was I going to say? I think of this again. I use a lot of cultural references. The Who, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. So the Maccabees or the Hasmoneans were very good fighters, but they made lousy rulers. One of the mistakes they made was they said, Shimon, you will be the priest and the king. That's anathema. What about all those other guys that were priests? All right, well, so Shimon gets to be priest king, and they fought and they actually killed rabbis. They had a big rivalry going between the scholars and the rulers. So there is a wonderful, not wonderful, but there's one in that dynasty, 102 years from about, so we said 165 to 63. So 102 years. For 102 years, there's a somewhat independent, let's say independent, but somewhat under the control of the Syrians, but we get to do our own thing. And guess what they got to do? Coin their own coins. This is another funny part of the story. Why do we give children coins on Hanukkah? Because the actual reason was after the revolution was over, people had these little coins, and on the coin was the bust of John Hyrcanus, the grandson of Judah. I think it was either Judah or John, but anyway, so this a Jewish coin, a Judean coin. So that memory of independence stuck with them. What? Quizzical. Yeah. So we had an independent empire or independent small nation for a little while, 102 years, and we had a queen. One of the descendants of the Hasmoneans was a woman named Alexandra Salome, not to be confused with Salome that when Nero that killed Herod, right? But her name was Alexandra Salome. Her Hebrew name was Shlom Tzion, peace of Zion, Shlom Tzion. So in Israel today, there's a street named after Shlom Tzion Hamalka because she was considered not as stupid and not as tyrannical as the other Maccabee rulers. And she tried to make peace between the Hasmonean rulers and the rabbis. So that's another interesting part of the story. Moving forward, they finally have, what's another big problem they have? Same problem that the Syrians had. They're still fighting. They're not finished. They go into Edom, which is today pretty much Jordan. And what do they do there? They forcibly converted a whole group of Edomites. We don't do that anymore. Yeah.
You didn't do it back then either.
They didn't do it back then either. It wasn't supposed to be done. You say, convert and we won't kill you. So, and karma going to get you because one of the descendants of that group was the man I just mentioned, Herod, who later on the Romans said, you're Jewish, we want you to rule over Judea. The Jews said, he's not really Jewish. He's from the Edomites, but he was, the ruler. So it's not a pretty story in the long run, but we survived. And I would put it this way, and then I'll end with this idea. What is on the end? Who's a better hero? A Holocaust resistance fighter who took up arms, who fought in the Warsaw Ghetto, which we'll be learning about, or the Israelis now, any kind of Israeli, whether it's back in the 1948 or 56, or I can name all the wars, or who is better? Who is more important, the scholar or the soldier? By the time we get, you can answer or not, I don't know. I would say both are valuable. If we hadn't had those crazy Hasmoneans, we would not have survived. But in the end, we get to the Roman period. I know I've done this before, but we get to the Roman period, and the Romans are 100 times worse than the Greeks ever were. And they are persecuting everybody, anybody who they think is a rebel gets on the cross. Wasn't just Jesus, it's everybody. Anybody always stay on the bright side of, you know.
Doo-doo, 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 doo-doo.
Yeah. Life of Brian. And that destruction of the second temple made it so, and now we come to this. Okay, so the Romans, when they destroyed the temple, took out all the gold, took it back to Rome. You see it in the Ark of Titus. It pretty much looked like that. And this is the 7-branch menorah. Menorah simply means candelabra. Middle one could be Shabbat. The others are the other days of the week. It could be a representation of the burning bush. It could be a Kabbalistic tree of life. There is you know this one. This is a version of the tree of life. This, push it around so a little bit. So when the temple is destroyed and the Romans cart off all that stuff, the people are devastated like they were during the Babylonian debacle, except that now what people begin to do is they remember the old days, and the rabbis were very adamant, don't rebel. You're going to get yourself, hung up on the cross or beaten the hell out of you. And eventually there was a rebellion.
There was 3, wasn't there?
There was, 66 and 135. What is the third?
I'm thinking
Like 32 or something.
Yeah, there was an attempt. There was an attempt, but it didn't go very far.
What did they leave 1,000 families? No.
Well, we'll be covering that in a couple of weeks anyway. So Hanukkah, and I'll say this again, Hanukkah, Purim, and Tu B'Shvat are all post-biblical holidays that were created or evolved out of the national need. Hanukkah out of the need to have something to hang on to after the Romans destroyed the temple and kick us out. Purim out of a need to kind of remember the old days back in Persia and this whole idea of, see, the bad guys got it, and we won. God survived. God helped us to survive. Tu B'Shvat is a little different. That's the Jewish tree holiday because it's a kind of like after we're no longer connected to land, let's remember it with fruits. And we'll be doing that in right after January. So this is called technically a Chanukiah. Let me get that. Can you get me? So the Chanukiah, the people call it a menorah, but it just because that again means candelabra. So you light the candles. We'll do this on Hanukkah Day. You light the candles from right to left, but looking at it, you see it left to right. And this guy on top is called the Shamash or Shamas. So sum it all up. You're sitting there, the rabbis are sitting there in the time of this celebration, and it's a people celebration. The people are doing it in their homes. They're lighting little candles in their homes to remember the days of the temple. And the rabbis have a big dilemma. Remember I said, the Maccabees killed rabbis. The Maccabees appointed, the Hasmoneans correctly, appointed their guy as a priest. That's wrong. Right? And they are not great rulers, and they're just like the old boss. So the rabbis in their kind of struggling say, what was Hanukkah about? Let's all do it together. Hanukkah was about the miracle of the oil when they came into the temple and God made it a miracle out of the oil was only supposed to last one day. It lasted 8 days. And that's all people know.
I mean, I always think of Nes Gadol Hayashim.
Nes Gadol Hayasham. A great miracle happened there.
Oh,
Or yeah, well, it's Poe if
Yeah.
you're living in Israel. All right, so I don't know. Should we show this movie or you want to wait until the next time we gather? How many of you watched Lights? All right, now, fine. So you watched it. So now you can watch it with a new eye. Okay, it's a very fun movie, and the other ones as well. You guys have been very, very much better than last year's group. You watched the things I assigned. It's great. No, well, it's also me. I'm doing better. I'm doing a better job. All right. So I'm sorry. I think it's because we meet, we have fun and we,
That's true.
yeah. So let's just throw out 3 major themes of Hanukkah are in that period that are still with us today. One, which is obvious, is don't assimilate, right? I mean, keep your faith and be strong. It's okay to acculturate, but be proud of who you are, be who you are. Don't get your hair straightened, don't change your name, et cetera, et cetera. The second one, though, which is probably a little more problematic, is keep your powder dry. Believe in miracles. Believe in miracles. God will help you, but God helps those who help themselves. And that's why I come down to this thing especially about the Holocaust or Israel. We must have people willing to fight. I'm just a pacifist, I just happen to, maybe I'm not a pacifist. I'm more of a anything but war.
But pacifists have a place too, because they're the ones
Yes.
who are the nurses and the doctors. And
That's right.
They do all of that.
My hero
They
of World War II is Albert Camus,
can't. Okay.
not the resistance fighters who were throwing grenades at the Germans. But they were necessary too. We're all looking at history in the long run. So in the long run of history, as crazy as some of those Maccabees were, we wouldn't have survived if it hadn't been for those guys. We would all be speaking Greek, like I said. Number 3, which I think is really key to today, is this is the theme that there's a quote, and I was going to bring out the song sheets. We'll do one song. We did it the other day. There's the Haftarah reading the rabbis chose for the Shabbat in Hanukkah is from Zechariah, and it says, "Not by might and not by power, but by my spirit you may live," says God. So in the end, I think that's the message. And the rabbis may have been not so goofy to say it's about the miracle. Because what is the miracle? What do you guys think the miracle is? Is it the oil?
Yeah.
You still think it's the oil?
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
I'd say it's the survival.
I think
Why
that,
can't it be both?
well,
Yeah.
he's right.
That's
He's
very-
right.
that's
That's
like
a
very
symbol
visceral
of
survival.
faith. He's
And
right.
that's God kind of rewarding and saying you're on the right track.
Exactly.
I think. Because
Uh-huh.
I believe in carrot and stick. God is like, all right, maybe you didn't do so right. I don't want you to die off.
Yeah.
And look, the world's surviving. You
Right.
have light. You have light. I know you're not supposed to use it to light, but you got the light.
Yeah.
And then, hey, you're surviving. You get to have kids.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Let me open
The
for,
other thing is, I think the
yeah.
golden coins to me, I always thought of, because my parents would say, no, you have to give something to someone who needs. It's like
The-
a forum. I don't know.
you're right on that, is that
Maybe
many,
changed it.
William, many holidays in the Jewish tradition involve an act of charity. We give fruits
Right.
and nuts
Right.
on Tu B'Shvat.
Right.
On Hanukkah, they gave gelt. On Purim, and we will be studying Purim, there's a mitzvah, shalach manot, which is the
Yeah.
goodies, but also you're supposed to give
You're supposed to-
tzedakah.
Yeah.
Tzedakah is charity.
I mean, if my parents give us money, it was always like that wasn't yours.
That's not your money. You got to give it to.
Yeah.
But
But you work and
buy-
get it back. What you give comes
Yes.
back. And so that's,
Right.
you know.
Let's open for the people at home, question or comment, and it is late, but not much, but 5 minutes. Mary, Jamie, Devin, Bailey, Amanda, Joe, especially Jamie and Devin, because you're normally here. Is this helping? I don't know if you guys are even listening, they're there, but is this helping to set the stage? And I don't want to start a new topic. If you look at this period, this sets the stage for the next period that we're going to hit of Romans and Christianity, and because they're coming from a Christian background. It's like I said several things. The Bible has been translated into Greek. The whole world is now able to see it. Hellenized Jews are discussing with their Greek or Roman counterparts, philosophers, oh, our God is a God of action, you do good things in the world. And the Greeks are sitting there saying, our God is capricious. I didn't give enough money to Apollo, so I got cancer. And they probably, there were a group of people, we'll get to that in the Roman period, there were groups of people known as God-fearers. They were, I didn't turn on the space heater, it went off. You guys getting cold? All right, guys, anybody at home have a question or a comment?
No, it's really helping clarify a bunch of stuff for us, so.
Yeah,
Yes.
James? Yeah. Uh-huh. What, on there? I know Israel and Hamas have made the agreement toward the hostage exchange as of this afternoon, just before I got here. It is making some sense. I'm glad. So we'll be covering this in future, but I said there were three things. One is, again, have faith, but sometimes you need to have a hero, a warrior, a group of people. Another is in the end, yes, God does say, not by might and not by power, but by my spirit. I think it's very valuable. And the third thing is the reason why, and I will cover this in a few weeks, Hanukkah was always thought of as a quote minor holiday. All these three post-biblical holidays, Purim, Tu B'Shvat, Hanukkah, later on, things like Israel Independence Day, they're not biblical holidays. The biggies are Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Pesach, Sukkot, the festivals, Sukkot, Shavuot, and Pesach. Those are the biggies. Why does Hanukkah become so big? And you know the answer, I'm sure.
Because Christmas?
It happens to come in the middle of December. And that's no accident, because I think that the 25th must be something of a kind of a pivotal time. You know, we don't think, most historians say Jesus was not born in December.
Born in June, right?
But somewhere in June, yeah. Well, he's born in Nazareth, but yeah, probably in June. He was, I don't know, I'm just joking.
That was a dad joke.
That was a bad joke. But again, and I keep on saying I want to conclude. Why do we light candles? I had to sort of throw that in just to do one more Tinkerbell killing. Perhaps, yes, there was a menorah in the temple. Yes, it was very important, but the pagan peoples had a holiday that was about bringing back the fire, bringing back the sun. It was called Saturnalia. So what did the Jews do? They said they adapted it. It's not Saturnalia. It's not that thing. It's our version. So, and I'm sorry, I got to keep going. What did they do in America when they first got here? Not talking about today with Christmas lights. What did they do in the Revolutionary period? I'm not talking about the Revolution, but what did they, early American people would put a candle in the window as the winter was coming. So we light candles to sympathetically bring back the sun at the solstice. So, and another way, Hanukkah contained within it, we have Pesach is a spring holiday, right? End of the harvest, beginning of the summer. Beginning of the spring itself. Shavuot is an early summer holiday, so we got the solstice covered, and Sukkot is a fall equinox holiday. So we have equinox, solstice, equinox. Where's December? Hanukkah filled that need. Hanukkah provided what we needed, at least in the northern hemisphere, for solstice, for that bring back. And imagine me coming here. I came in January, but I had already been here for Hanukkah. Imagine a little California guy coming in the middle of all this snow.
It's like crazy.
I was in Boston, I was in Philadelphia, but can you imagine doing Hanukkah in South Africa in the middle of the summer? So, all right, rabbis talk too much. Who's got a closing? Let's sing one song. Let's sing a song. It's on, just so we can conclude on a happy note. If you want it in the booklet, or you want to do, it's from the booklet. 7, number 9. What is that?
Light one candle.
Yeah, sure. Good, perfect choice. Page 7, number 9. Peter Yarrow, play me the guitar. And I told you at services, Peter wrote this in 85 or so, in response to all the, the militaristic kind of emphasis, and he wanted to share that. Let me hang on. That's right. Fine. It wasn't happy. Would the dog react? Look at him. He's doing so well. Light one candle for the Maccabee children. Give thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand. And light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. The claps come at the end. The light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own goal. Light one candle for those who are suffering the pain we learned so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in. Let anger not tear us apart. Light one candle to bind us together with peace as the song in our heart. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many. No, you do the melody. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine in our love and our tears. What is the memory? What is the memory that's valued so highly that we keep it alive in that flame? What's the commitment to those who have died when we cry out they've not died in vain? We have come this far, always believing that justice will somehow prevail. This is the burden, and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through. All right, 4 claps. Here we go. Don't let the light go out. Don't let the light go out. Don't let the light go out. All right, 8:40. I want to tell you that although we'll never catch up to the songs that have been written for Christmas, about Christmas, some by Jews like Irving Berlin, there are tons and tons of Hanukkah songs now, Israeli, American, and rap. Matisyahu, whose name is Mathias, Matisyahu, the rap singer. And if you want to, between now and Hanukkah, go online, just to do YouTube and look for Hanukkah parodies or Hanukkah like rock and roll. A group of yeshiva guys call themselves the Maccabees.
Yeah.
And there's another group called 613. And there's just like for Purim, there's all these spoofs. The Bohemian Rhapsody, there's a Hamilton parody. American Jews have become very creative, and Israelis too. So you can find some great stuff out there. Anyway, next week, I thank you all for coming. I thought maybe with Thanksgiving people would. Anybody doing anything exciting, special, different, unique?
I'm working.
You're working. Yeah, he manages a restaurant or a hotel.
I'm just the dishwasher.
Or just the dishwasher. Okay.
Not
All right.
just. Without the
You two
dishes,
should go into
can't eat.
business together.
Right?
You two should go into business
don't
with
think you
him.
could
He
stand
could be
for
the food manager, and you could be the front manager, and he'll be the kitchen manager. Anyway, I'm going to Evergreen, where my sister is coming with her boyfriend and one of the kids from Cleveland, and then the other kids who live here. And we're all going to meet at an Airbnb. So next week we will go. I don't want to do more boring history. We will be doing Kabbalah in 2 weeks. All right. And it's heavy, it's spiritual, and do a little advanced reading if you can. So next week, if you can, I mean, I'll send this out too, but if you can, watch the video that is, I think, number 2, that heads what happens after Rome falls. Then we head out, and we're all over the place. And so, but it really, we'll watch some of that, and I'll try not to bore you guys with the history on that. We'll learn how the Jews ended up in Germany.
Ashkenaz.
Ashkenazi Jews. They started out in Rome, and we just headed north. And my people ended up in Turkey, and Jews in Kaifeng, China, and in India. I mean, all over the place. Not a pretty story, but it's got to be told. It will all become middle-aged. Yeah, it's like Clarence, it's like the African diaspora. And that's the word that's operative, the Jewish diaspora, the African diaspora. All right, anybody have a closing, let me see, my closing blessing. I was going to bring more stuff on Thanksgiving, just may you all remember the source of our goodness, source of life. Thank the farmers and the farm workers and the land itself and the Native American peoples who were here before us.
The Wampanoag tribe.
Wapano here and Arapaho and what's the other? Cheyenne, of course, Cheyenne. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. All right. Yep, yeah,
okay, right?
yeah. Well, William, welcome. Everybody want to say hello to his puppy? I didn't eat anything, so make me a little care package. Yes.
What does your hoodie say? El Shaddai?
El Shaddai. That's the second one you had. You had another one. You're just buying it. So what is El Shaddai then? You got to tell us.
Isn't that God?
Huh? God Almighty. Yeah.
That was on the mezuzah.
Good translation. Well, Shaddai is what's on the mezuzah itself.
Yeah.
Shin Daled Yud. Clarence, why don't you go at least pick out what you'd like for when you
I'm
do
gonna stop the
come.
recording.
Stop the recording. Okay. Oh.